Rob looked left, and bin Laden was there holding one of his wives with an AK-47 next to him, and Rob shot him twice and then once on the ground. In that 1 second, all 3 SEAL snipers fired at one time off the rear deck of the ship into a moving boat, a lifeboat. All 3 Somali pirates killed, Captain Phillips saved. They kept saying, down, down on the ground, we'll shoot you in the backs. And that wasn't even a possibility. Our mindset was that we're going to win no matter what.
Hi, I'm Moshe Popek, and welcome to Common Denominator. Today we speak with Don Mann. Don is a retired Navy SEAL Team 6 commando, an internationally renowned endurance athlete, and a multiple New York Times best-selling author. He's changed countless lives by sharing his unique, reaching beyond boundaries philosophy. He'll talk about the work he did with SEAL Team 6, which is the unit that assassinated Osama bin Laden, as well as the dedication it takes to complete 2 Ironman triathlons in one day. It's going to be an unforgettable conversation. Hi, Don, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you, Moshe. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Tell us about the time that you spent with SEAL Team 6, the actual team that assassinated Osama bin Laden.
Well, when I got into SEAL Team, I started out at SEAL Team 1, and I had this burning desire to get to 6 at some day. And back then, it was kept secret. It was a super secretive organization, but you knew they had long hair and beards, and they didn't look like SEALs. They didn't look like the military. They were the cream of the crop. I never thought any SEAL would not want to be there. It just seemed to be the place to be, So I got over there pretty quickly. You have to do so many deployments, so much time. You have to be ranked pretty high up among your peers and all. And I got there fairly quickly, and it was the best time of my life. And there's a difference, though, between when I was there and now, because when I was there, we were training for every possible scenario in this world, because SEAL Team 6 has a worldwide capability. The odd number SEAL teams, 1, 3, 5, 7, and so forth, the odd number SEAL teams take the western side of the world as an area of responsibility. The even number teams, excluding 6, 2, 4, 8, and 10, do the east side of the world. But SEAL Team 6 had a worldwide capability, so I couldn't wait to get there. Worldwide capability, 4 hours up. You get the recall notice on your phone that you got to go somewhere. You get to work, you load up your gear, and you have to be wheels up en route to that location within 4 hours. It was just high speed. And the guys who were there, they were intense, all of them in a different way. Not like so intense you couldn't be around them, but they're all so focused on work, so focused on the mission. And it's the mission and the job and the team meant everything. On the downside, there were a lot of divorces because when you're gone up to 300 days a year, your family, they have a hard time dealing with that. And so a lot of families broke up and a lot of marriages broke up. But it was the place to be. We learned a lot from the IDF. We did a lot of training with the IDF. I loved working with the IDF. They were among the best in the world. And they worked with us. We worked with them overseas and here in the country. And being part of 6 was, the only bad part about it is when you left, you felt like, what else is there? I went right to work with the government and did a lot of work with the government, all different agencies. And everything was a bit of a letdown since then. But after years, you come to adapt, and But I can tell you, I had a good talk with Rob O'Neill, and Rob was at the team, and he is the one who shot bin Laden. And he said, we're always chasing the rainbow, kind of like what we were doing, always looking for the action. Well, they thought they found bin Laden, and they weren't sure, and they flew into Abbottabad. They all wrote little letters to the wives and girlfriends saying, if I don't come home, I died doing what I wanted to do. And they came in, they flew in. I know you heard the stories. The one helicopter had a hard landing on the wall. But they came through, and there's some small arms shooting down the first deck. They started going up the second deck. Rob was number two. The number one man, the SEAL up in number one in the stack going up the stairs, was the smartest guy Rob's ever known. And bin Laden's brother looked down the stairway and saw the SEALs coming up the stairs. And then he backed off. And the number one man remembered his name from the little get out of jail CIA cards we used to get that you had to memorize. Well, he did memorize it.
Yeah.
He said, Ahmed, Ahmed. And Ahmed turned, looked down again, got the bullet right through the head, and then he died.
Wow.
The guys came rushing up. Number one man jumped on the woman, knowing he's going to be blown up. He knew they were going to pull a suicide vest, and he was just trying to save their lives. Rob looked left, and bin Laden was there holding one of his wives with an AK-47 next to him, and Rob shot him twice and then once on the ground. Then all the other guys came rushing up saying, what happened up here? What happened? Rob said, well, I think that's him. He wasn't distinguishable at that point. They did the DNA testing, put him in a body bag, got all the intel, the hard drives, the soft drives, everything they could. The helo that went down on the wall, they put a thermite flash grenade in there so there wouldn't be any evidence left behind as far as technology they could steal. They all jumped back in the helicopter, Rob and the others holding the body bag with bin Laden in it. And they all flew off, all of that in 45 minutes. And I wasn't there, of course, but so many of my friends were on that raid. And one of the things I was told afterwards, it was like shooting paper targets. The training you set up was never that easy. All the training we've done in the teams, everything was harder than that mission. So the great thing about the SEAL teams and other units and IDF, the other units here, the Marines, Rangers, Delta Force, you train harder than what you think the mission's going to be. And we have a saying that there's more sweat and tears put into training. The more sweat and tears put into training, the less blood shed at wartime. And that was a good example because, of course, everybody in the world was looking for bin Laden for 10 years. Finally, he's in Abbottabad, we think. They flew in there in 45 minutes. They got him and no problems at all.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that just happens. It's like moments of time. But kind of what you were saying, and many champion athletes that I've interviewed and military, that experience of basically, you're chasing and then you get there, and the other side of it, like even on something simple, as a business person, many people I know, let's create this huge business and then one day I'm going to sell it. But I always talk to people maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years later, it's the people. So you get there, but it's holistically, I always think about it. It's like the emotions, visually, you think about the emotions that you're going to have after the fact. What are you going to be busy with, right? You have all this, which you're not even respecting, like that self-aware, like, to be ready and to keep yourself busy with other things. But what is it about a specific, let's just say yourself, what was inside of you, I guess, as a child that you're like, the typical person has fear. You must have had a particular set of wiring that you want to chase the best. Like you said, SEAL Team 1 wasn't good enough, which is already crazy to an average person. What is it that wanted you in your wiring that wanted you to be part of SEAL Team 6?
And Moshe, if you don't mind, for SEAL Team 1, I loved being at SEAL Team 1, but I just knew there was something in addition. And but so what I just wanted more out of life. If you're going to be a SEAL, why not go to 6? There's more shooting, more jumping, more diving, and the worldwide capability, everything. And it was secretive, it was a secret team and you can be undercover. But, those were in the early days when 6 just started. Once the 2 wars broke out, Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of the teams were doing a lot of the same missions. And so it kind of didn't, it wasn't as distinct after a while. They still had unlimited funding. They were the team known to get things done. But the other teams were also doing a lot of hard work. And so were the Rangers and Delta Force and Special Forces as well. But six got a lot of attention because all the money spent on six with the unlimited budget, it drew a lot of high ranking officers lobbying for them in the Pentagon, admirals and generals. And they say, okay, we want the boys from six to go do this mission. We want the guys from six to do it. And the success rate's been very, very high. I mean, they got Captain Phillips. I write books. I would have never written a story that, yeah, there are these pirates on a lifeboat, and they have Captain Phillips, gunpoint, and some others, hostages, and the lifeboat's being towed by a ship, and the SEALs jump in, make it on board on the ship, and then three sniper SEALs sit at the deck of the ship, and they're told, just get an eye on what's going on with that lifeboat. And it's hard. The ship's going up and down, the lifeboat's going up and down. And I've seen the lifeboat. It's just small windows in there. And they're trying to get a view of what's going on inside. And they tried all these different tactics to get the lifeboat closer to the ship, or to get it pulled ashore, or to have the interpreters try to get the message across that, hey, give yourselves up. We'll be easy on you. No harm, no killing. Just give yourselves up. None of that was working. So then they finally said to the three SEALs, okay, if you guys can get the shot, take the shot. And I was talking to one of the guys who heard the shots. He was on the boat, and he heard one shot. But in that 1 second, all three SEAL snipers fired at one time off the rear deck of the ship into a moving boat, a lifeboat. All three Somali pirates killed, Captain Phillips saved. I wouldn't have put that in a book.
Amazing.
Because it's too unreal. But SEAL Team 6 was getting mission after mission after mission, high mission success. And two aid workers, they rescued them in Somalia. Things were going really well for six.
And when you say six had also worldwide capabilities, is it just working in different terrains? Or, right, so you have this unlimited budget and dealing with any scenario, it could be water, land. Are they just trained differently? SEAL Team 1 versus a SEAL Team 6, the training is differently when you say like worldwide capability?
Well, that's true also. So SEAL stands for sea, air, and land. So anything from the sea, coming out of submarines, swimming, diving, small boats, cigarette boats, bigger boats, they have to come out of the sea. Some way coming onto the mission, coming to the objective from the sea. And air, it's halo, hey-ho, parachute jumps, fast roping, so many ways to insert into a target from the air. And land, is patrolling, basically, motorcycles, four-wheelers, things like that. So all SEALs do all of that. The difference with six is they have to be ready for the Arctic, for the mountains, for the desert, for the urban terrain, for riverine warfare, for down Central South America compared to Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and even the cold weather places where there's rough terrain. When I was at 1, all we trained for was desert ops. When I was training with Team 4, all we did was jungle, Central South America. So it was, the teams were pretty much geographically assigned to different regions in the world, where 6 had 24-hour, world coverage.
And I know that you're a survival instructor as well, whether like you talk about kind of jungle, desert, Arctic. So you take like lay people and train them in different environments. Is that because I know that's, for me, that would be super exciting, like to just go in certain environments and, to learn from someone, has experiences yourself.
Well, I've done that for many years, taking people to different environments, and I was putting on these competitions, which were the biggest competitions in the world for adventure competitions, called adventure racing, and would put them through 500 to 600 miles of rugged terrain, jungle, Arctic, mountainous, where you had to go nonstop for 10 to 11 days with just what you're carrying on your back. And then those big races pretty much went away. And now I'm a host of 3 TV shows, and we put those people, the contestants who come through these same type of environments. For instance, it's called Surviving Man. We put these people through these really rigorous physical fitness evolutions, then a lot of weapons training, but they're operating either in the jungles or in the desert or somewhere. So I've done that in a lot of different ways, but now I'm doing it basically with TV. I can also say I'm working, just as a contractor, but with Global Point Consulting, and they are some of the most professional people I've ever worked for as far as training people to survive, training people how to get from point A to point B. They do all types of work, but they're about the most professional civilian organization I've ever worked with. And I enjoy doing that with Global Point Consulting and working on the TV shows. And the founder of SEAL Team 6, Richard Marcinko, he was a consultant of a movie about El Chapo. Well, Richard Marcinko died. He was the founder of SEAL Team 6. And then I was asked to take his place. So now I'm the movie consultant for El Chapo. So we're going to be training in the jungle. So I'll be training people how to operate in the jungles, how to shoot, move, communicate in the jungles, and also in the tunnels where they had all the girls and all the kids being transported from Mexico to the U.S. in these tunnels.
And I know what's fascinating is that actually you were captured at one point. Yeah. Did that? How was that experience?
Well, that was it was. I don't want to sound odd. But that was a good experience, really. It was a really good experience. And I know with your mindset, I know you'll get what I'm saying. So we had to jump into this country, a country at war, and we all had food poisoning. We were operating with the Egyptians, and they were eating snakes and frogs and killing the snakes and frogs on their boot and peeling the skins back off the venom snakes and taking the venom sacs out and eating them. And we all did this with our counterparts there in Egypt. And we were teaching them things, they were teaching us things. But then from there, 4 of us flew down to an enemy area. And we were sick. We had food poisoning. And we came in by helicopter, dropped the rubber boat out. We parachuted in, follow the boat into the water, take the pallet from the boat, get in the boat. And we were still very sick. And the water was infested with sharks. There were sharks everywhere because what the Arabs were doing were killing camels and putting the entrails of the inner guts and everything of the camels in the water. And that's where we parachuted into. So the 4 of us were just bobbing up and down in this boat, trying to keep our eye on what's going on the land. We didn't see any enemy personnel or any personnel, so we swam off the boat, and we had to find a place to hide for 3 days. So it was a finger of land with water on 3 sides of that finger of land. It was only a couple 100 meters across. So we had to dig a hole somewhere where we could see all the activity at the airport and all the activity at the shipyard. So we dug a hole quickly because we had to get this done before daylight. We buried all our boats, motors, and all that stuff in one hole. The other hole, we took our rucksacks and our weapons, and we went inside that hole, and we took a piece of camouflage netting and put it over our heads. So, if you weren't right on us, you probably wouldn't know we were there. And for 3 days, we're just observing what's going on at the shipyard and at the airport. But we all had food poisoning. And so we had diarrhea and we're vomiting and urinating. You couldn't get out. You had to do it in the hole. And then at high tide, the hole filled with water. So we're in our own sewage for 3 days. And there was a bad sandstorm, and the camouflage netting was perforated, so the sand was coming in at us. So our noses were filled with sand, our ears were filled with sand, but we had goggles on. We had long hair and beards. So we're sitting there with our weapons in our sewage, noses packed, ears packed, just trying to do our job. And then on the 3rd day, some guy just started walking through the desert. I don't know why he was coming to where he was going, but his eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger as he saw that netting in his desert floor. And then he sees four guys with goggles with weapons pointed up, and he put his hands up and he ran off. So kind of like Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, we had it much easier than he did, of course. But that's how his people were all killed, because a goat herder caught him on the mountain. Well, we were caught in a similar way that a local caught us. He went back and got reinforcements. When Marcus Luttrell was captured, when they were shot up, the people who came after Marcus was about 75 in number. The people who came after us was 16. So it was 4 against 16. We were trying our best to get out of that area, just undigging the other hole as quickly as we could to get our stuff out of there, trying to get out to sea, inflate the boat and try to get out to sea before daylight. But that guy brought 16 of his buddies around, and they all had their fingers on the trigger. They were scared to death. And they were pointing the weapons at our chest and heads. And one of them said, our lieutenant basically said, guys, put your hands up. So we put our hands up, and that's something you never hear as a SEAL, put your hands up. And we could have jumped for our weapons. We had shovels in our hands, except for one guy who was on watch. And we could have 4 against 16. We would have been slaughtered. We could have jumped in the ocean, and they would have just sprayed the water, and they would have got us. So we had that one option. We'll put our hands up. They circled around us, and they were just scared kids, just pointing their weapons, us say 17, 18-year-old kids, pointing their weapons at our chest and heads. And one of them, who could speak broken English a little bit, was saying, down, get down on the ground. We shoot you in the backs for trespassing. We said, no, we're not doing that. We're getting in this boat. We're going back. We had these little fake CIA cards. Hey, if you catch these guys, they're just training. So a buddy of mine went to get his card out of his rucksack, and they put 4 AKs up against his head. And we thought he was gone. And then those guys couldn't read anyways. I don't know what those cards would have done. So anyways, they kept saying, down on the ground. We shoot you in the backs. And that wasn't even a possibility. Our mindset was that, combat mindset, we're going to win no matter what. We are going to get out of the situation. None of us thought we were going to get killed. And finally, an interpreter came from the village and says, go, get out of here, go. They were just tired of dealing with us. We got back in the rubber boat, came around the finger of land, did another mission that I can't talk about, did another mission, success, and we won and they lost. And, so what I like about that story is the combat mindset and the resilience and the attitude we all had, because none of us thought we were going to get hurt. We all knew we were going to succeed. Nobody complained. Working conditions don't get much worse than that unless you're being shot at. We weren't being shot at. But nobody complained, and we all signed up to do work like that. And it was such an honor being surrounded by 3 other guys who thought just like that. And that's what's great about being in the SEAL community.
I think it's amazing to think about that headspace. And that really is the truth. Every day, as lay people and people I come in contact with, you're complaining about this, complaining about that. I'm just listening to this story, and I close my eyes and I think about it. I'm like, wow. Like, it doesn't get more specific and intense, but the combination of your mindsets, like you're saying, that hope, that ability, that gives you, so it's not about actually what's happening here. You've created a whole other kind of world, and you're operating in that space, all of you in unison.
Right. That's right. I pray, and I pray before something dangerous is going to happen. I pray for thanks after nothing bad happens. But I also always keep in my mind a saying that I heard many years ago, and that is, in the end, everything's going to be okay. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And I just always keep that in mind. And I was talking to a lady yesterday who just lost her home out in Los Angeles. And I mentioned that to her, and that reached to her. And she said, yeah, I know, in the end, it'll be okay. I just always kept that in my mind when things got rough.
And I know, your story is tremendous, because I know also, you decided to climb Mount Everest, and you had to be airlifted out. Well, what happened there?
Well, was going to mention this earlier, but the way I do things, and for some reason I've always done things this way, and I just accidentally bumped into this philosophy in life, is look for something really, really, really hard and difficult and challenging to do. And later on in life, I started calling those macro goals. So Everest was a macro goal. Being a SEAL was a macro goal. Being an author was a macro goal. Competing in the 500-mile races was a macro goal. But I always pick something that seems like there's no way I'll be able to do this. And my friends and family say, that's insane, you can't do it. So I picked this hard, far-reaching macro goal and using Everest. So the micro goals were small, climbing a lot of smaller mountains and getting ready for that. My macro goal for mountaineering was to climb the highest mountain in the world. And I finally had the money and the 70 days you need to get out there and do that. And I was as fit as could be. This is 8 years ago. And I was on a tough team of mainly Kiwis, New Zealanders. And the girl on our team, Lydia Bradley, she was the first woman to summit Everest without oxygen. And she summited 7 times. She is hard as nails. But something that happens up on Everest, you get avalanches that come, they're all over the place. You're just hit with avalanches all the time. The year before was the highest record of avalanche kills than any year on Everest. And it's because the mountains are getting warmer and softer and the snow is melting, the ice. So all you do is hear avalanches and you see avalanches. And it's very discerning because the year before, an avalanche came through our base camp and killed everybody. And it was intense. So you're dealing with the avalanches, the altitude mountain sickness, the high altitude pulmonary edema, and cerebral edema, where your brain cavity and lung cavity fill with fluid. And then you fall through crevasses and things like that. So there's all these concerns, but this year was even worse because of the global warming, the mountains warming up like they are, and all the avalanches. So Lydia said to me, she goes, Don, you're the oldest guy on this team, and you're the only one not having any issues. I said, Lydia, I'll knock on wood, but I'm feeling good. And because when you get HAPE or HACE, high altitude pulmonary edema or cerebral edema, it comes on fast. And we were up on the Khumbu ice fall, and you have ice axes and crampons. You're going up these ice walls. It's the most dangerous place on Everest. They're just big, 100, 200-foot ice walls. And they move, and they shift, and they collapse, and big pieces of ice, size of homes, come off of it daily. So it's a really dangerous place. And I was climbing a vertical ladder, and I was having a little bit of hard time breathing, a little aluminum ladder. And then it started getting dark, I thought, but I was getting cerebral edema, so the fluid was pushing into my brain. I was losing my vision. And then I lost all my color vision. I couldn't see color anymore. And then it got dark, and I lost all my vision. And then I lost my memory, and that's when I was going up one of these tall ladders. And then I couldn't breathe, and when I put my head down, just fluid was coming out of my lungs and nose. And I had to stop, and I said, what is going on? I don't know where I am. I knew I had to climb the ladder, and I made it to the top, and I collapsed. I passed out, and Andre Dorje Sherpa, the most famous Sherpa in the world, the hero of Into Thin Air, was there with us. He was on our team. He saved more lives than anybody on Everest. And he saved a lot of lives, and a lot of lives died in his arms, people who had HAPE and HACE, like what I was just developing at that time. So he said, can you walk? I said, yep, but I couldn't speak anymore. I was just coughing and choking. I take a breath, it sounded like a fishbowl. It was just my lungs were 75% filled with water. So he gave me his oxygen mask, and I put my hands on his shoulders. We started walking back down in the direction of base camp, which is 20,000 feet. And I kept collapsing and passing out. And finally, we got to this 200-foot ice wall. He said, can you rappel? I felt like saying, I've rappelled all my life. Of course I can rappel, but I couldn't speak. And because I couldn't even talk, I was coughing and choking so much. So he did this rappel. And I was thinking, most of the rappels I've done at night. I thought it was nighttime, but it was daylight, but I lost my color vision. So it looked like nighttime for me. So I grabbed the rope, I had my harness on, my rappel device. I've done thousands of rappels, and I forgot how to rappel. And I was thinking, I don't remember how to rappel. I lost my memory. But that morning, I did see a Sherpa wrap a rope around his arm 8 or 10 times, and he went off a wall, just releasing like one loop at a time off his arm. I remembered that, so I figured that's all I got. So I wrapped that rope around my arm a bunch of times and just went off the wall, releasing one loop at a time. Luckily, I had enough loops, so when I hit the ground, it was in one piece. I was in one piece. And then we made it back down to base camp eventually. And the doctor who saved so many lives the year before when the avalanche came through and killed all those people, she ripped open her thigh. A piece of the avalanche had ripped open her thigh while she was saving lives. And she took her own suture and needle and sewed up her own thigh, then went on saving lives. Well, she is the one who saved my life. She came up to me with Andre Dorje Sherpa, and they were shaking their head like your lungs are this much with fluid. You've got hape and haste. We got to get you off the mountain right away. And like so many Everest stories, there was a bad storm. They couldn't get a helicopter in, so I had to wait 2 days. And I just remember just being in a tent away from people. I didn't want my coffin and choke and keep everyone up. And I couldn't think of how, my mind wasn't aware of how close I was to dying, because I couldn't comprehend it, because my mind was just being compressed. My brain was being compressed with fluids. I still have some issues I'm resolving, but I've got some scar tissue in my lungs. So, and I still am very active with cycling, racing, paddling, climbing, running, skiing, all that stuff I'm still doing. But I'm slower now because of the scar tissue in my lungs have taken up some of my alveoli airspace.
I'll tell you, just listening to the stories is like tremendous inspiration, just the things that you've done in your life. And what's interesting is seeing how you're speaking about it in a very casual way. I speak to certain people and they also have that kind of casual way of doing extraordinary actions in their lives. And it was like, it's like you built that way, DNA. Has it happened? It's a training, it's a combination of everything. But seeing that, you truly should be tremendously proud of yourself. And I want to ask you, Don, what is something, looking back at all these things that you've accomplished, what is something that you're deeply grateful for?
Okay, I'm grateful. I'm 67 now. I'm very grateful that I'm still able to do all the stuff I like to do. I'm grateful that the lessons I've learned in life, that I'm able to pass on to other people. I really enjoy doing that. I especially like helping children. And it's usually taken me a lot of time to figure out what to say to young guys who want to go in the military, climb a mountain, or be a SEAL or something. And I've got it figured out now. And this is what I enjoy the most, actually, more than anything physical, is trying to pass on something I've learned in the past to children. And I say, all you have to do is 4 things. If you want to be a SEAL, all you have to do is 4 things. If you want to be a mountaineer, all you have to do is 4 things. But do them every day. And every day, number 1, just do something that'll make you stronger, physically stronger. Now, you might be able to do 100 push-ups today, tomorrow do 110. You might be able to do 40 pull-ups today, tomorrow do 42. But you don't expect that workout handed to you on a silver platter. You figure out, join CrossFit, do something, but get stronger every day and be able to measure it. So you're not just saying, yeah, I must be stronger. So every day do something to make yourself stronger. Every day do something to make yourself faster. And this is for the SEAL community or mountaineering or something. Some professions don't require you to be faster, but you can be more efficient. You don't have to be stronger, but you can be a stronger leader. You could be stronger in a non-physical sense. But number 2 is every day do something to make you faster or more efficient. For sit-ups, if you could do 120 sit-ups in 2 minutes, do 122. If you could do a 640 mile, go out and do a 635 mile. Do wind sprints, do fartleks. Whatever your job is, if you're a doctor, be more efficient, but stronger, number 1, and faster or more efficient, number 2. And more importantly than that, I think, is every day do something to make yourself smarter. So if it is a SEAL you want to be, learn what was going on back in World War II, learn what the UDT guys, underwater demolition team guys, before SEALs, how they were clearing the beaches, what weapons they used, the missions they were on, learn what happened in Korea and Vietnam, and then Iraq, Afghanistan, all these other wars, and go learn to skydive, go learn to dive, and take some shooting courses, but learn everything you can be. But most importantly, I really believe is every day just do something good for somebody. That might be your neighbor, it might be your brother, it might be your daughter, it might be, who knows, somebody you don't even know. Because if you start this, and I love it when I talk to the young guys, I say, if you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you start now, when you're 17 and you go for selection at whatever you're trying to do, you just might be the strongest and fastest person there. You'll probably be the smartest person there in that community or that arena you're going into. But you're the teammate everybody wants on the team because all you know is doing good for people. So I love passing along messages like that in some way, either training camps or TV shows or whatever it is. That's my main driving force now is just passing that message along.
I think stronger, faster, smarter, good for someone else is like great framework. And I want to say thank you so much, Don, for your time. Really tremendous things that you've accomplished. And how can people find you on social, get your books? I know you have a few bestsellers, or watch your show.
It's all on a website, usfrogman.com. And Frogman's 2 N's, like my last name. And if you just Google my name, Don Mann, Navy SEAL, that stuff pops up on Google too. You know, I really appreciate what you're doing and the reason you're doing all you do. And I want to thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll together inspire and give practical tips for people. Thank you so much, Don. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Don. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'd be grateful for a like, share, or subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, feel free to leave a rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.